There, I'm Drew Badger, the world's #1 English fluency guide and the co-founder of EnglishAnyone.com, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to a special kind of video where I think I will hopefully accomplish two things. I will kill two birds with one stone. This is a really great English expression you can use when you want to talk about doing one action and accomplishing two or more goals. So this is maybe even something in your own language. I know the expression two birds with one stone is in Japanese as well. Iseki nicho. So one stone or one rock and two birds. So basically, what I'd actually like to do is kind of inspire you, but show you a way of learning and really talk about the most difficult part of language learning, which is that in-between time where you actually have to train yourself to practice. Now, as a language learner like yourself, like myself, I'm learning Japanese in the same way you're learning English or any other languages. The most difficult part of that is not really learning the words, because it's easy to find lots of information. It's more, how can you get in front of people and practice and make mistakes and do the kinds of things that you have to do when you're training with people, in the same way that you get to the gym and you exercise and you train yourself. And how do you deal with that when you make mistakes? And that's the difficult part, because again, the learning of the actual language is really not so difficult. The grammar and the vocabulary and all that, it just takes time to review. But when you make mistakes, that's where it's really problematic. So a lot of people, because they're pretty good at actually learning the language itself, they're really good at taking tests. So maybe that's you. You're the kind of learner that can take tests and you can do well when you're listening to something, but maybe when you have to speak by yourself, you're not so good at it. And the reason is because you're probably shy to speak and you don't want to make mistakes and all the typical things that happen with that. So hopefully this video inspires you, as I'm showing you an example of not necessarily language learning, but the same way the principle of language learning, which is iterative learning. To iterate means to have various versions of something, to start with something basic and continue to mold and change it over time, but to do it with other people so that you can get feedback from them. And this is a very common thing you see with technology companies. They make a particular application, or they make some software or something, or maybe they try one business idea and maybe it kind of works, but it's not really that good, so they change and do something else. But the whole process happens with other people. So you're continuing to create something and work with somebody else or a bunch of other people. And the same thing happens when you're practicing your English. So when you're learning to speak, you have to go through this phase. So the only way you can really do it, the only way you can get fluent, the same way with, practicing the violin or playing the piano or getting good at any particular sport, all of these things, it's not about learning facts or information. It's about the actual training, because it's a physical skill. So what I thought I would do today is give you an actual demonstration of something I'm working on, which is an iterative design or an iterative way of learning myself. And this is our very first application. Wow, look at this. So I've actually got my iPad right here. And this is our very first app. I don't want to get a glare there, but I'll show it for you. There you go. It is called Scroll Phonics, and you can see that it's actually not very beautiful looking. It's actually incredibly simple. The color scheme and the fonts and all of that stuff is really not very nicely designed. But the point is that we just want to start with something that we can share with people. So this is the point where you're starting to make something, and maybe you think it's going to be good, maybe it's not. But if you're too scared to get that initial version out for people to test, and people are complaining about this, people are saying, well, like it doesn't look very good, or maybe I don't have so many levels in the game or something like that. But that's okay. I'm happy to hear that criticism. Even people are also excited about it as well. But I'm happy to hear the criticism people are making about the game or the application, because that's what helps me learn and make a much more valuable app. So I thought I would actually take you through the app and talk about, in the same way that we try to improve our language skills, I can actually show you what we're thinking about behind the app, why we're designing it in the way we're designing it, and hopefully you will be inspired yourself to get out and make some mistakes and kind of do the same thing. So again, even though this isn't the most beautiful app you've ever seen, it's a great start, and it's actually like I was saying, our very first app. So I've never built one of these before, and I've got a great team helping me, and we're just getting it out and trying it out. So I know we're in the middle of a beta test right now, and I know a lot of people are not able to test the app, so I figured I would just, put it up here and show you what it looks like. So Scroll Phonics, kind of the background of the game here, what I wanted to do is have a system where people could actually teach themselves how to read. And so what I was doing is, instead of having the kind of typical app where you would have to find lots of letters and it would kind of tell you what to learn, I really wanted to give students the ability to find things for themselves. So just looking at the very basic application that we've got here, there's only one button to get started. So we push on that, and then we've got some various levels that you can choose from right here. So the level select screen, again, it's not very beautiful, but it's just a very basic thing. Now I've already gone through the game, so all the levels are unlocked, but you can scroll through and choose a particular level you'd like to have. So as an example, we start with the alphabet up here. So the very first letter is the letter A, and we can start with the alphabet and just look at that. But I thought it would be a bit more interesting to look at some of the higher levels in the game. So we're going to go to bat. So as you can see here, we also wanted to make the application be something that it was really easy for people to understand without being able to read, because a lot of phonics apps, if you give them to a child or something, they've got a way to look at the application, but if they can't understand the instructions in it, it kind of defeats the purpose of learning with the application. So for this one, we've got find and explore and listen, and we've got test. So we're going to check out two of these, actually two of the modes in the game right now. So the first one is explore. So I'm just going to go into here, and all we're doing with what I've done with my team is we've created a set of wheels that people can actually test different combinations of words. And all you do, if I can get a good grip on this here, yeah, these are actually pretty big. So this is the basic, kind of gameplay of it. It'll look much different than this when we actually finish the full application, but you can scroll through and create different words. So instead of having someone tell you what something is, the whole point of the app is for you to go through and to teach yourself by experimenting with different combinations. Now in the app currently, we only have a very limited phonics selection, so we actually only wanted to go up to consonant, vowel, consonant, because we wanted to give people the opportunity just to test it and really experiment, as they're being able to play with the game. So we wanted to make sure it's something, I could go through and scroll through. Nab, and if it's an actual word, then a little picture or an animation comes up. So nab means to take something. So as a non-native speaker, you would be able to learn with this as well without having a lot of explanations. Now some of the words, maybe it's a little bit more difficult to understand, but this is again more of a reading app than really teaching the language. So native speakers and non-native speakers can use it as well. So what's again interesting about this is that even if a particular, like pab. Now pab is not a word, and so no picture appears up here. But if we want to, find this in some other word, other, like maybe it won't appear as a word by itself, but pab will be, as a part of a particular word, like pabst, that's actually a kind of beer, something like that. Or we can have other words that, again, even if it's not a word by itself, you're learning the phonics rules such that you can put this into another word. So something like pab, it wouldn't necessarily be a word by itself, but you would find it in something else. So I can play up here.
Pab, pab, pab.
This.
At,
pab, so I can play individual sounds, or I can play the whole thing.
pab,
Pab, like that. Now again, if I'm just scrolling through,
mab, jab, lab, lad, lag, lamb, lan, lap.
and all I'm doing is I'm exploring with the alphabet as opposed to someone telling me what each of these, words or things like that are. So when I'm finished with testing, there are a couple different modes we can use. I'll actually just show the final test mode. We're going to have a lot more games when we finish the final version of this. But for now, I just wanted to have something nice and simple that people could test their ability. So what we've got here is a really simple, just a game where you're trying to, if you have about 5 minutes where you want to find all of the words and make all the words before the time runs out. So if you forget what the sound is,
Bag,
Okay, so I'm looking for the word bag right now. So I have to find all the letters in order.
B, at, g, bag,
And it shows me what the word is.
cag,
Now, cag, here's one of those words that is not an actual word, but you would have cag as a part of larger words, and that's why we wanted to make something like this where you could actually teach yourself. So I'm going to put C,
at, g, cag,
cag.
bap,
Bap is another word that's not actually a word. Well, I guess you could maybe kind of bap something. It's like a sound effect, but here we go.
b, at, p, bap,
Bap.
gab,
Gab. Here we go. Good.
g, at, b, gab,
And now to gab just means to talk. Now, I'm not going to go through all these. I just wanted to show you basically how the game works. But again, the important thing here is that I'm releasing something that's not very polished, but it looks, it looks okay. And it's enough to get the idea across to people of what we're creating. And the same thing happens when you're learning the language. So when you're trying to speak, the easy part, again, is the actual learning of the vocabulary. It's just the practicing of it that you need to do, and that's what takes time. And if you go out and you're afraid to do those things, if you're afraid to create something, if you're afraid to show people, then that's the thing that's going to stop you. So I'm just here to show you. I'm here, showing this video of something that's not quite perfect. It's actually very far from perfect, and there's really not much to it. It's actually a very simple thing. Again, we've only got a few modes. I can go back into like a particular mode. I can change the particular level I'm on. Like the alphabet is very simple as well. We're just going to go to Explore. Here we go.
A,
And I'm just going to scroll through the letters.
X, W, V, U,
And if I go to my word book up here,
A,
I can scroll through and it'll tell me the different letters that I'm playing with over here. So again, it'll look much different, when we finally finish it. It's a little bit kind of textbookish right now, so we're going to make it a bit more lively, but we just wanted to have a basic idea of how to do something. So this is exactly the same thing you should be doing. Even if you don't sound perfect, even if you don't, create something that you think is, actually a correct sentence or a true sentence, just get out and start speaking. This is the same thing I had to do when I was starting to learn Japanese, and when I finally decided, okay, it's okay to make mistakes in front of people, that's when I started making real progress. So if you can do the same thing, I hope this video inspires you not only to, maybe learn more about designing your own app and also to think about this. You can actually learn more about Scroll Phonics. I'll put a link in this video if you'd like to learn more about that, if you have any questions. But hopefully we'd like to release the full version of the app in maybe the spring of 2016. So we're working again with people that are on the beta list right now. So we're actually testing it. And if you want to get a copy of this, we have, I think, still a few spaces available. You can send me an email at info@englishanyone.com if you'd like to get a test version. And if we still have versions of it available, because we only have a certain number of them that Apple will let us release. So if you'd like to get a copy of this to play with, the app actually goes from the alphabet up to three-letter words that begin with B and then have in the middle. So actually for the current version, rub. Pretty cool. Anyway, I thought this was a really great thing because this is exactly the tool that I wanted to create for a long time, and this is how I taught lots of little Japanese kids how to read, but instead of doing it with an app, I was just doing it with cards and actually being the voice of the app. So right now you can actually have a really good native voice that's perfectly native when you actually hear the words.
rub,
It's a regular native pronunciation and the individual sounds as well. Rub. So it's a really simple app. I mean, you can go in here again, like you can look at all the words and
cut, cup,
I think it's really cool. So it's a very basic app still, but again, get out and practice. This is how you learn. This is how you improve, and you have to go through this phase of trying something and making a whole bunch of mistakes, making something that maybe doesn't look perfect, but that's how you get there. You go up in steps. You don't make an immediate jump to fluency, just like we're not going to make an immediate jump to a really fantastic app, especially not the first time we're making one. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's given you a reason to get excited about learning, and also to get excited about, even building something like this where you're creating something for other people and helping them learn. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.